In this video, I'm cutting a fairly large cherry as part of a timber stand improvement. You can see that this has a crotch that is starting to split open. Cherries are notorious for this as they get larger. I picked this cherry because as they start to split like this, they are at real danger for splitting all the way down the butt, and also that can form a rot pocket in that split opening. This cherry will never improve. It'll never get any better than what it is, and chances are it is going to get worse. So it is one of the ones to go. To give you an idea of the size, it's a little over 23 inches diameter at breast height. I have already spent some time looking the situation over, deciding which way I want to fall this. There's a lot of things that go into that decision. You've got to look to see, if you're going to damage any other standing trees, even smaller ones that you might want to keep. Now, some of these that I am trimming here are beech saplings and of no real consequence in my wood lot. Some of the other things is you've got to look up and see if this tree is going to get hung up in any other trees, if there are any dead branches that might come down in this tree and any other trees that you might brush against. There's always a danger of limbs and stuff coming down. That's one of the reasons for wearing the hard hat. Cutting trees is a fairly dangerous endeavor, so you've got to be careful and take a lot of precautions and a lot of thought. As I do with most saw timber, I cut this about as low as I can, even though it's a little bit uncomfortable sometimes to try to saw that low. The butt log typically has the best quality and best yield of the entire tree. With this log and the crotch starting to split, it makes it even more imperative to cut it low and get as much as you can, because you don't know how much of a log you're going to get once you've taken that crotch apart a bit to see how far it's cracked down or how much rot is in there. This notch is one of the most important cuts in the whole felling operation. It will largely determine which way this tree is going to fall. The notch also controls the fall itself. As long as you have the proper hinge size and the proper notch where you haven't done a Dutchman, and that you can look that up, I'm not going to get into it here, it will control the tree as it drops until it is fairly close to the ground, depending on how big the notch is and the overall configuration of it. Chainsaws have a sight line on them to help you determine the direction of the hinge in the fall, so you can use that to sight down and see where it's going to fall, and if it doesn't look right, alter your hinge until it does. There's an awful lot of things to consider when falling a tree and which way it's going to go. You have to look at the top of the tree, the whole tree actually. Is it leaning? Does it have branches up at the top that are weighting it in one direction or another? Just way too much stuff to get into here. I'm just giving some of the preliminaries on how I cut this. This tree is pretty straight, has nothing that looks like it's going to throw it off whichever way I want it to go. I'm using a plunge cut here, which I typically do with larger trees. It gives an awful lot of control and is probably the safest way to cut. I end up leaving a little bit of wood at the back of the tree as holding wood, and the tree will not fall or will not pinch the blade until that is cut. Since the blade did not come all the way through at this root flare, I'm now coming forward on this side and finishing that cut, and also adjusting the hinge so that it is about 10% of the diameter. The thickness of the hinge is 10% of the diameter of the tree. As you can see, with this technique, the felling of the tree is much more relaxed, more controlled. You have more time to look things over and decide, yeah, it's ready to be released. I have aimed this tree to brush against a very large dying beech tree. I'd like to take the beech tree down, but it's got a lot of dead stuff in it, very dangerous to take down. And two, it will slow the cherry down so that it's less likely to break up when it hits the ground. As you will see, I underestimate the holding power of that beech, but it does eventually give and the tree comes down. With the hinge thickness predetermined, it is quite easy to just do a small back cut on the very back of this to release the tree and have it come down in a controlled fashion where you want it to, or at least hopefully. There's things that always can go wrong. I think this just gives you the best chance of having it go the way that you want it to go. As you can see, as this falls, there are some small branches that come out of the top of this and could give you a headache. They're not real big, but would definitely hurt if they hit you on a bare head. My next video will be me bucking this up into saw logs and showing what the inside of that crotch looks like. It's interesting.